likes to peek, or at least he wants to peek, into your hard drive. He wants to be able to get your computer's IP address without a warrant. He wants all of your computer online traffic recorded. Says it's no big deal. It's like a phone book. I asked a computer geek friend of mine, and he says, no, it's nothing like a phone book. In fact, it's like a fingerprint, except it's a fingerprint that can tell how much money you make, what you read, where you get your news, what you say to your best friend, what turns you on, and how you vote.
Phone is constantly leaking lots of information.
You could know that I was at the protest. You could know everyone I text messaged at the protest, every number that I called at that protest. You could know things about my walk, facial recognition, potentially your political views, your motivations, all of these things in seconds.
Law enforcement at protests use tools to try and spy on people's phones. If you get arrested, your phone might get searched.
请你抢红灯，请步从停止线内。请你闯红灯，请退回停止线内。
China is positioning itself to lead the world in artificial intelligence. Surveillance technology is a key proving ground. Facial recognition, body scanning and geo-tracking, matched with your personal data and online behaviour, will power the social credit system, leaving no dark corner to hide in.
Governments in the Western world, indeed in the world at large, are anxious to keep a record of who people are talking to, what kind of information they're finding out, so that they can detect patterns of, that suggest crime or terrorism in the offing. And in all these ways, therefore, we expose ourselves to view through the use of these devices.
To the western edge of China, Xinjiang, the nation's largest province and, according to some, the world's largest open prison. Xinjiang is the homeland of the Uyghurs, Turkic people of Islamic faith. China's rulers have struggled to control the region and its people for 2 millennia. Surveillance technology is the new weapon in their campaign.
Bu nazorat sistemasi 2016 yılı yıl ahir kelganda meningcha hamda bu kontrol sistemasi Uyg'urlarga nishonli qaratilgan bir sistema. Biz endi bu suratga olgan chog'da apparatni qaraymiz, qarab turib buni qarab, andan keyin o'ngga qaytib kelamiz, solga yana qaytib kelamiz, ustiga qaytib kelamiz, ostiga.
Tahir and his wife were being scanned by facial recognition software, their faces mapped from all angles to enhance accuracy. They were even forced to produce a range of facial expressions.
We should be very worried, I think, about the amount of data concerning ourselves, including very personal, private, intimate data about ourselves, which is now out there in the public domain, both in private and in public hands. We should be worried about it for a large number of reasons, but one central reason is that this information is stored digitally in one or another location out there in a way that we may not have access to ourselves. And it's very, very easily manipulated. It's very easily changed by somebody who is either lazy, incompetent, or malevolent in some way. It's very easy for that information to be shared and for patterns of information to seem to appear to certain agencies that could put one under suspicion even if one weren't a suspicious individual. In other words, the prospect for misinformation, for corruption of our personal information, and for mistakes to be made about our personal information is massively increased by the fact that there is so much of it out there and so much of it is collated by different agencies. And if other people know what's going on in our thoughts and in our personal records and communications, they've invaded that margin and they've made it less easy for us to control our own lives.
The spirit of the web. The spirit of the web, the beginning was of people working, as it were, under the bedclothes with a light on. People were working after other people had gone home and installing a web server and sending me an email saying, oh, by the way, at the end of work today, I installed this web server, I put some photographs on it, hope you like it. Or I put up all our documentation in the web form, just in case you're interested in it. Most of these people did it because they thought it was a good idea at the time. And of course we do lots of things because it seemed like a good idea at the time, and a lot of them turn out to be a terrible idea when we look back later. So it's worth celebrating the ones where actually it was a good idea. The web naturally, as a technology, tends to lead to openness. It makes openness easy and closeness more difficult. So one of the nice things has been where we've seen that countries that tend to be rather closed and where information flow was not very good have used the internet, in fact, to open up.
People put their lives on the screen. They put really intimate details of their lives out there, and with very little thought that there might be people using that information in ways that are not benign. You start to want to hide. I mean, at first, it's all good, it's all good. I'll give you, you get this kind of what seems like a virtuous cycle of more and more and more. But as we see what this generation looks like as it grows up with it, they're now a generation in retreat. There's surveillance cameras all over. We're both giving up unprecedented amounts of information in profiling. I think that it's hard to teach the relationship between privacy and democracy.
How the people in power will use artificial intelligence to control us and to manipulate us in novel, sometimes hidden, subtle, and unexpected ways. They also encourage deep surveillance on all of us so that the machine learning algorithms can work. That's why Facebook wants to collect all the data it can about you. The algorithms work better. What if the system that we do not understand was picking up that it's easier to sell Vegas tickets to people who are bipolar and about to enter the manic phase? Such people tend to become overspenders, compulsive gamblers. They could do this, and you'd have no clue that's what they were picking up on. There are already companies that are developing this kind of technology, and a lot of the stuff is just off the shelf. As a public and as citizens, we no longer know if we're seeing the same information or what anybody else is seeing. And without a common basis of information, little by little, public debate is becoming impossible. These algorithms can quite easily infer things like your people's ethnicity, religious and political views, personality traits, intelligence, happiness, use of addictive substances, parental separation, age, and genders, just from Facebook likes. But if the people in power are using these algorithms to quietly watch us, to judge us, and to nudge us, to predict and identify the troublemakers and the rebels, to deploy persuasion architectures at scale, and to manipulate individuals one by one using their personal individual weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And if they're doing it at scale, through our private screens, so that we don't even know what our fellow citizens and neighbors are seeing, that authoritarianism will envelop us like a spider's web. And we may not even know we're in it.
The United States and its partners, unbeknownst to the entire world, has converted the internet, once heralded as an unprecedented tool of liberation and democratization, into an unprecedented zone of mass indiscriminate surveillance. People, when they're in a state of being watched, make decisions not that are the byproduct of their own agency, but that are about the expectations that others have of them or the mandates of societal orthodoxy. This realization was exploited most powerfully for pragmatic ends by the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham, who set out to resolve an important problem ushered in by the industrial age, where for the first time institutions had become so large and centralized that they were no longer able to monitor and therefore control each one of their individual members. And the solution that he devised was an architectural design originally intended to be implemented in prisons that he called the panopticon. The primary attribute of which was the construction of an enormous tower in the center of the institution, where whoever controlled the institution could at any moment watch any of the inmates, although they couldn't watch all of them at all times. And crucial to this design was that the inmates could not actually see into the panopticon, into the tower, and so they never knew if they were being watched or even when. And what made him so excited about this discovery was that that would mean that the prisoners would have to assume that they were being watched at any given moment. This mindset, this framework discovered by Bentham, was the key means of societal control for modern Western societies, which no longer need the overt weapons of tyranny, punishing or imprisoning or killing dissidents, or legally compelling loyalty to a particular party, because mass surveillance creates a prison in the mind that is a much more subtle, though much more effective means of fostering compliance with social norms or with social orthodoxy, much more effective than brute force could ever be. The most iconic work of literature about surveillance and privacy is the George Orwell novel 1984, which we all learn in school, and therefore it's almost become a cliche. In fact, whenever you bring it up in a debate about surveillance, people instantaneously dismiss it as inapplicable. And what they say is, oh, well, in 1984, there were monitors in people's homes, they were being watched at every given moment, and that has nothing to do with the surveillance state that we face. The warnings that Orwell issued in 1984, the warning that he was issuing was about a surveillance state, not that monitored everybody at all times, but where people were aware that they could be monitored at any given moment. Here is how Orwell's narrator, Winston Smith, described the surveillance system that they faced. Quote, "There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment." He went on to say, "At any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You had to did live, from habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and except in darkness, every movement scrutinized. A system of mass surveillance suppresses our own freedom in all sorts of ways. It renders off limits all kinds of behavioral choices without our even knowing that it's happened."
Your rights matter because you never know when you're going to need them. Beyond that, it's a part of our cultural identity, not just in America, but in Western societies and in democratic societies around the world. People should be able to pick up the phone and to call their family. People should be able to send a text message to their loved ones. People should be able to buy a book online. They should be able to travel by train. They should be able to buy an airline ticket without wondering about how these events are going to look to an agent of the government, possibly not even your government, years in the future. How they're going to be misinterpreted and what they're going to think your intentions are. This is not a left or right issue. You know, our basic freedoms, and when I say our, I don't just mean Americans, I mean people around the world. It's not a partisan issue. These are things that all people believe, and it's up to all of us to protect them. And to people who have seen and enjoyed a free and open internet, it's up to us to preserve that liberty for the next generation to enjoy. And if we don't change things, if we don't stand up to make the changes we need to do to keep the internet safe, not just for us, but for everyone, we're going to lose that. And that would be a tremendous loss, not just for us, but for the world.